What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. You know what time it is. We're talking Devy risers and fallers here at the Devy Royale. Talking guys that, hey, improved in value, went up in value. Hey, how are they playing? What do they look like right now in terms of their Devy value, but just how they done in college football, right? We like college football. That's what we're doing here, talking about it. So, first guy up. Now, hey, this is a guy we are so happy he popped out of here. Evan Stewart is back, right? So, when we're talking about a guy that we were really worried about going into this game against Ohio State. Oregon obviously came our way with the win, but Evan Stewart's been MIA. We haven't seen him missing in action. Where the hell has this kid been as he transferred to Texas A&M? I'm a huge fan of Evan Stewart, but even I was like, man, panic meters high, 9-8. Like, what's going on here? Comes out, and obviously Trayshawn Holden getting kicked out for spitting on a player helped him because he had that ability. Gary Bryant wasn't in there. But hey, you have to give him props. 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. You could see on the season, though, it hasn't been great, right? 66.3 receiving grade, yards per out run, only 1.81, ADOT's 14.0. No drops, but only one missed tackle for us, and yak per reception hasn't been great. But I'm going to tell you right now, Evan Stewart's that player that you usually see that just plays great in big games. Against Alabama his freshman year, that was really his coming out party. He looked amazing in that game. So we're happy with what he's putting on the field for this last week, right? When we're thinking about Ohio State. And when you look at the season grades, you'll see like he's struggled. He's earned some targets, 31 targets. But really, this was his coming out party. He had a good game against Boise State, the 112 yards and touchdown. But after that, just wasn't in there, right? And games that they probably needed him a little bit. But he comes up, he steps up in big games, and you see that. And I think the big thing with him is, he's really kind of been versatile out wide in the slot. You'll see it there. But really, he's that out wide guy. And I think people are really looking for a game like this. He needed a game like this for everything, all intents and purposes, just in terms of what he was and where he struggled at. And when you're looking overall where he gets the football, I mean, really, he's that big play, deep threat guy, right? When you're looking at that, most of his targets come from median deep. You'll see it. He can get behind the defense. He catches the ball well. Like when he is on, I'm telling you right now, Evan Stewart is one of the best wide receivers in college football. When he's on, now he hasn't been on this year, and he struggles sometimes with consistency. But when he is out there and he's a game time player, man, big game player. He can do those things. So over time, he's that deep threat. He doesn't have to be that behind the line of scrimmage guy. He can do that. I still think from like a value perspective, where is he? I still think he could come back for his senior year. So obviously that hurts him a little bit, but thank God he did something. We're excited for that. Now we're going to stay in Eugene. We're going to be talking about the running back, Jordan James. I mentioned him a few times in the podcast that we do. Me and Jay Stein for the Devy Royale. He's rising up. I think that he is an interesting and a fun prospect when you're thinking of what he's put on the field, right? 89.3 run grade, yards after contact over 400, 3.68 per attempt. Missed tackle force 32, 10 plus runs at 41. Like he's done very, very good overall when you're looking at him. And against Ohio State, 23 attempts, 115 yards, and a touchdown. He's looked solid, and he's been one of the more consistent players out there at the running back position in this class, pretty much across the board, right? So when you look at overall, just like what his numbers have looked like, 95 yards, 86 against Oregon State is his low, but he hit over 100 yards in 4 straight games. You see him just doing extremely well. And I think the big thing with him is he's shown that explosiveness that you'd like to see. His ability to make missed tackles for us, those 10 plus explosive runs there. You like that about him, his elusiveness, 110-ish sitting around there. Like he's just been consistent. Now, what is he in this class? I think he's versatile. I think he can catch passes as well. I think he's fringe day 2 guy right now still. Like we're talking, he's there. I would have him in my top 5 running backs. I think I have him at 5 right now when we're going through the 2025 running back rankings. Just right now, I mean, things can change. Things are definitely fluid there. But I do think he has a fun skill set. I think he can go between the tackles. I think he's explosive enough to get the edge. I think that he can make big plays. I think long speed is a little overrated. But when you're looking at breakaway speed, it's pretty good. I mean, he has that ability. I like him here. I think that he's done very well. I think he's risen up boards. He was a big riser for me in the offseason. I was one of those guys pounding the table, draft him in those 4th, 5th rounds. He's a value. He's definitely doubled that value, and that's something that you should like if you have him on a roster. Now, we're going to go another running back here. We're going out to Clemson. We're going to talk about Phil Maffa. I don't think people talk about Phil Maffa enough. Obviously, Shipley being there last year, He was one of those guys that kind of got overshadowed a little bit. He was more of the thunder to, Shipley's lightning. But hey, Phil's kind of put in a quietly very good season, right? And especially this last week, 19 attempts, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Run grade, 82.5. Yards after contact, over 300. Yards after contact per attempt is pretty good, 3.84. Missed tackle for 17. A guy his size, you'd probably want to see that number a little higher there. And he's never going to be an elusive guy. But when you're looking at Phil and you're watching him play, like part of it's like, man, he's an NFL back just by his size, his quick feet, his ability to kind of just have that short area quickness, especially in the red zone. He's going to be a guy that just plugs and plays. Like, I don't expect him being a day 2 guy. I do think he's a day 3 guy, clear and clear, but he's definitely improved his value. And I do think a team can use him. I think they can utilize him if they're looking at that third down running back type, if they're looking for that kind of that banger on the inside, if they're looking for that short area, short down, when thinking of like just a third down guy, needs that short area, 3-4 yards. Hey, he's going to earn those yards. I think part of that is going to be him. And he's been pretty consistent as well. You think of Florida State, 154 yards, App State, 118, NC State, 107 on just 7 attempts. So like he has shown some explosion there. And that's what you like. But again, not going to be a huge guy. I do like his breakaway percentage over 50%. We'll take that. I think long speed's a little bit overrated, but he definitely has the consistency, and he definitely is one of those guys that he's going to find his way. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a true 3 down round, day 2 kid, but he definitely has a skill set, and he definitely is a good enough runner to make the NFL. And I think that this year he needed that. If he can hit over 1,000 yards, has that production there, I think that'd be fine. I think he's also an underrated pass catcher. He can do that. He's not asked to do it a ton, but he definitely has that ability, and he can be a pass catcher too. Now, next guy we're going to talk about had a hell of a game, and that's Tyler Warren. And shout out Christian Williams here at the channel. He's talked about Tyler Warren in the past, but 17 catches, 224 yards and touchdowns against USC this last week in the comeback win. He was phenomenal at a tight end position, really in line. And in slot guy, right? He just looks weird because he wears number 44 for some out there. But this season, he's been balling. 92.2 receiving grade. You have to like that. His 8-out's been great. Missed tackle force been 10. He's just a very consistent guy. And again, you want a helmet scout, tight ends from Penn State, that's fine because they produce, right? And he's definitely kind of had that. When you're looking at just the numbers overall this year for him, he's earned the targets. Obviously, he had 20 targets last week, which is pretty crazy. But he had 2 games of 7. So he's definitely had that, and his 8 against Bowling Green. So we've seen that production. But again, I think the big number is the slot and the wide percentage. Like, he's the 45% in the slot. He can definitely go out there, but he's big enough and strong enough to be kind of that guy that can just kind of be both in line and in the slot, kind of be that seam guy. I do think athleticism is the biggest thing. Like, what is he going to test at? What does that athleticism look like? What's that 40 look like? What's that RAS score going to be? Because again, is he a tweener, right? Is he a tweener for fantasy purposes? Is he that guy that we really like, a Ben Sinnott, right, from Kansas State this last year? But what is his role going to be? I think that's the question. But many have him as tight end 1. So if you drafted him, if you have him out there, he's definitely increased his value more than probably any other play at that tight end position, just because of that perceived value, bump that he's gotten from his season this year. Now, as far as like where he's getting the football, really it's medium to short. That's kind of where he eats. He does a really good job in the 10 to 19 range, finding the range. He has some great catches against USC this last week in the contested catch situation, but obviously just going up there and getting it. I also think from just a red zone perspective, he can be that kid. I think that he's a deep guy. He's that 20 plus, but he can also find his role in the NFL. Just be that red zone, zone buster, sitting down, finding those touchdowns and doing that. So shout out Tyler Warren for having a hell of a game this last week. Now, as far as fallers, I want to change it up a little bit. I'm not gonna go with particular players because it seems to be the same players right now. They're just not performing that like they should. Really, what I want to talk about is just the Devy quarterbacks. It's a mess right now. Going through my rankings, I'm updating my rankings this week when you're looking at just kind of the position as a whole. Man, Nico, he's struggling for Tennessee, right? Jackson Arnold got benched. And then you look across the range, Quinn Ewers up and down with the injury. Then you're looking at Drew Aller. Some people love Drew Aller, some don't. But the problem is in this format, you need people to love more, right? You need to have them have that value and have that perceived value so you can move them or whatever the case may be. Cam Ward, up and down. Interceptions, looked really good, though, at times. Carson Beck has kind of plummeted out of the first round. Has a huge game against Texas. We'll probably talk about Carson Beck next week, but definitely on the fallers list, right? It's come to a point where I'm looking like, man, Arch Manning might be QB1 just because the hype, right? The value, the hype. Hey, this kid is a Manning. He's looked good in his spot starts that he had. If you have him, he's going to be a first-round quarterback. So that's the worry about drafting Devy quarterbacks. I think one of the things is, we all think we're smarter than we are. We're going to go take that quarterback. He's going to be a first-round guy. And really the value pits are so big that I just say avoid the position entirely. Unless you absolutely have to take quarterback, I'm avoiding that position. I just think the value, the pits are too much. You got to stay away from it. We've seen the up and downs throughout this entire year. I mean, Jalen Milroe was a first-round quarterback after his game against Georgia, and then he loses to Vanderbilt, and his value just dips completely, right? So, that's the worry that you have when you take Devy quarterbacks. I think right now the quarterback position's a mess. I think that everybody's kind of lost value, except for a couple. Dylan Raiola, Arch Manning. But again, when you think of Dylan Raiola, if true freshman, next year he could plummet away, right? Jackson Arnold also had that bump last year. So a lot of question marks at the quarterback position. And you can't throw dirt on a lot of these guys. Like, can't throw dirt on Jackson Arnold. He's going to probably transfer, go somewhere else. Look what Cam Ward's done, right? 2 different teams now. People are pushing him up to QB 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? Shedeur Sanders sitting there. What do we do with him? Just a lot of question marks at that position. But overall, the position is an absolute mess. So appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys in the next episode.